Welcome to Going for the Green and Happy Masters Week. I'm Brad Thomas here with Denny Carter, and we are ready to break down your favorite plays and bets for the Masters tournament. But I have to mention, listen, I got a little dust off of the cowboy hat for smashing Akshay Bhatia at 60-1, Denny. Life was good. So let's get into it. Before we get into the betting, I have to ask you, everyone talks about the food at Augusta National. When you step foot on the course, what are you ordering first? Pimento cheese sandwich, egg salad sandwich, Georgia peace ice cream sandwich, or the cheese straws?
First of all, I appreciate that Augusta has a limited menu. Okay, we need more limited menus. So I'm actually going to be contrarian here. I'm going to be a little bit of a Augusta hipster. I went in 2011, and my experience, look, to each his own. I'm putting the cheese pimento sandwiches at the bottom of the ranks. I'm putting everything above that. I was not a fan. I'm not usually a fan of egg salad, but that one was good. I gave it a try, and that one was good. That was better than grandma's, is what I'm saying. So and grandma, I'm sorry if you're listening or watching. I apologize, but Augusta knows how to make an egg salad sandwich.
I'll say this. Listen, I'm not gonna have my grandma throwing chairs at me, but I'll probably order all four at the same time and just work my way one bite at a time. So take a bite of the pimento, bite of the egg salad, probably not a bite of the ice cream. That'll probably be last. But anyways, Denny, let's get into it. Let's talk about the top of the board. Scotty Scheffler, the favorite, plus 400, absolutely insane. I think he might close around plus 300 by the end of the week. I want to talk about history before I give how I'm going to play Scotty Scheffler. Since 1985, there have been 15 instances where there have been a favorite of plus 450 or more. Only one golfer, Tiger Woods in 2005, actually won that event. I mean, history's not on the side of Scotty Scheffler, but I will say that the data is going to be on the side of Scotty Scheffler. I bet Scotty Scheffler 2 weeks ago, and before that, I bet him a month ago at plus 750. I couldn't believe the price. At plus 400, if you don't have the availability to get an odds boost or any of those odds generators, you're probably going to have to pass. But if you find an odds boost, the 50% or the 25% that most books are going to offer during Masters Week, I think you have to take it. Scotty Scheffler, for ages, well, it seems like ages now, maybe a year or two, had always been dominant with his iron, always been gaining a ton of strokes tee to green, which is absolutely necessary at Augusta, but his putter had failed him. Well, he switches to the mallet, and Scotty Scheffler wins 2 out of 3 events, gains strokes putting in 3 events. And Denny, this is what I really like about it, right? When he played at the Houston Open, I know you and I talked about possibly fading him. He played horrible. Like, I was watching him, like, he broke his non-bogey streak. He had a double bogey in that tournament. Yet, on 18, he had a putt to send it into a playoff. I know the field's much stronger, but the field's also smaller. So I like Scotty Scheffler. Who do you like at the top of the board?
Yeah, he's tough. Look, Scheffler's tough to fade because he's a machine from tee to green. We are in the Tiger realm, as you mentioned. We are in the Tiger realm, whether good or bad, justified or not. He is in that category right now. So he's a machine from tee to green, and he happens to be Seve Ballesteros around the green, which is just not fair.
I forgot about that.
I don't know how these guys are supposed to compete with a guy who is at that level. If he is a 0 on the greens this week, he can still win easily. Okay, he still win going away. So anyway, there are a lot in DFS on DraftKings. There are a lot of obviously great high priced options. I can't get away, Brad, from Hideki Matsuyama, who has been an amazing ball striker throughout the entire year. He's come back from injuries. I know he was struggling with some back and some wrist issues last week. That freaked me out enough to get off of him, mostly in DFS. From all reports this week, he should be okay headed into the Masters. But the thing that I love about Hideki Matsuyama is that he's an elite ball striker with an elite short game, not necessarily putting. Okay, if you look at his putting track record around Augusta, it's not great. But that really, per the stats, that really doesn't matter a whole lot. He's number 1 overall over the past 8 seasons in strokes gained around the green at Augusta. I know that that's a mouthful, but in other words, he knows how to play from that short grass around the greens, and that's going to be so important this week.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about Hideki's short game, and I think we don't talk about it enough because it's generally overshadowed by his putting woes, but he's really only losing like a half a stroke putting. And what I think people don't realize is when you have a guy who is talented around the greens, you point out those numbers that I like, Denny, who's talented around the greens. If they miss a 3-foot putt or a 4-foot putt or a 5-foot putt after a great approach shot or after a great around the green shot, they're going to lose strokes to the field putting. So I mean, he put himself in that great position, and all you want is the opportunity to keep being in good positions to make it. I love Hideki. So I love your play. I don't know how chalky he's going to be in terms of ownership, but I mean, when you have a guy who's won it before, who's playing really well and finally healthy, there's no way that I'm going to talk anybody off it. I have 0 shares of him, but in DFS, you better believe I'm going to have at least 2 or 3 lineups, single entry, mind you, where it's going to be Hideki for me as my top high price guy. Let's dive into like the value guys a little bit further down the board. And I didn't go too far down the board because my mentality, Denny, is like when I go to a major and I'm betting a major, I'm not taking like a lot of these really long shots.
Sure.
I'm just going to take Xander Schauffele to finish inside the top 10 at plus 185. This number's all over the place depending on which book you're looking at. Xander Schauffele is everything that you need to exceed at Augusta. And that is, he's long off the tee. He's good off the tee. Tremendous iron player. Number 2 on approach this season in the field. Masters experience. He has a few top 10s already here. And last, I'm going to talk about this throughout the week in pretty much every article I write. Mentally, he feels like and sounds like he's at a good spot, right? Like he's not letting these close calls kind of deter how he's playing. He seems like he's really relaxed heading into this one. So I love the price on Xander Schauffele.
I think, he profiles as a guy who can, again, like Matsuyama, combine that elite long game with a good short game. Now, the putting is up and down for Xander this year a little bit, but around the green, he ranks number 4 in this field in strokes gained across this season. So he's really, really good at getting it up and down. I think that obviously that's going to come in handy around Augusta, and he has a great track record. I do think people will be off of him, maybe with betting. I know in DFS, because of the idea, like you mentioned, that he struggles to get the job done, to close the deal. So maybe you can play that to your advantage.
Okay, let me ask you. So we want great ball strikers here, right? We want guys who are not afraid off the tee and guys who are creative around the greens. What do you like about Siwoo Kim? And not only tell me what you like about him, tell me a realistic expectation of his finish. What are you thinking from him?
Right. Yeah. So Siwoo Kim is going to be 7,100 on DraftKings, and really like with the live guys going, away from the PGA Tour. We're used to seeing Siwoo Kim at 85, 9,000 even on DraftKings. So this is a really reasonable price for a guy in Siwoo Kim who has been on a hot streak ball striking. He finished tied for 17th at Valero, 6th at the Players a few weeks ago. He's top 12 in ball striking. He's top 8 in strokes gained around the green. He is actually very creative around the greens. And, obviously, like I said about Xander and about Hideki, that's what's needed here. I think that people will kind of glide over him when they're making their lineups. They will look at him and they'll say, I'm going to go with this guy. I'm going to go. This is a field where I think a guy like Siwoo Kim can be completely forgotten in large field DFS tournaments.
Hey, I have Siwoo Kim in my fantasy lineup, and he was kind of my flyer this year, but I mean, he's been doing pretty well for me. I'm kind of battling that borderline, going to make the playoffs, not going to make the playoffs. So a big Masters would be pretty nice for me. Let's talk about these guys, the live guys. We both have 2 live guys in kind of our long shot, higher price, lower price guys. I'm going to ask you a question before I get into my guy. What are your expectations from the live players as a whole in general?
Well, we have better data generally on these guys headed into this Masters compared to last year's Masters, and that's nice. That's helpful to have some baseline as to how these guys are playing over at Live, since it's tough to watch them play. We're not really sure about the team aspect and all this stuff. But you have guys John Rahm and Joaquin Niemann who are hitting the cover off the ball. I mean, they are tearing up that tour. Ball striking numbers are off the charts for both of those guys. We know that going in. And I think that their price point in DFS reflects that elite ball striking. One guy I wanted to mention was Sergio Garcia. we're throwing it back to my youth with Sergio here at 6,800 on DraftKings. And the reason I mention that is because he's top 4 in ball striking on Live Tour this year. And he switched putters right after horrendous putting struggles to start this season on Live Tour. Last year, he struggled mightily on the greens. He switched putters last week, Brad, and he gained 5.3 strokes in the Miami event, in the Live Tour Miami event. That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
So if he can carry that putting improvement over and continue flushing the ball like he has been, I think that he's a really great bet to at least make the cut. And that's all you're really looking for in DFS with a guy who's 6,800. Yeah,
when anytime you're stocking your lineups with those low price guys, or even when you're doing your Masters pools, right? Like you just want a guy to make the cut because they have a chance to finish high. All they need to have 2 extra rounds and to get you a little bit more points. I'm going to go with Bryson DeChambeau top 10 at plus 300. And listen, Denny, I went back and forth on how I was going to play Bryson this week. We know his Masters history is pretty awful. He missed cuts and back-to-back Masters, but I think last Masters was kind of like a wake-up call for him, right? He went through this mad scientist phase where I'm just going to get as big and beefy as possible. And it kind of messed with his swing. It kind of messed with how he was playing. He was like losing strokes off the tee. He was losing strokes on approach. If you go back to Memorial in 2022, he lost 9 strokes on approach. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, he basically could not hit a green in regulation. And when he did, he was so far away, he was more likely to 3-putt than 2-putt. But now he slimmed down a little bit. He had that T4 finish at the PGA Championship, top 20 finish at the US Open, and in those instances, he gained a ton of strokes off the tee. I think that he'll take his medicine a little bit more because, let's face it, when Bryson played in the Masters the last few years, he was pretty young. And now he's going to be a little more mature and knows that you cannot overpower Augusta. Augusta is one of the toughest courses for a reason. They design it so you can't overpower it. I think he's going to take his medicine on sometimes, and I like him in the top 10. It's plus 300, right? So we're not like going to go crazy on this bet, but at that price, I feel like there are other guys around him that literally had no chance to finish in the top 10. And the way he's playing right now, I think he has a good shot of finishing inside the top 10.
I'm with you, Brad. I'm a fan of the version of Bryson that's not trying to win a long drive contest every week. And he slimmed down and he looks good. He doesn't look like a bodybuilder out there. He looks like a golfer again. And I think that you've seen that, it's translated into really good numbers and strokes gained on the Live Tour. I think he can bring that. He doesn't have that short game history here, but I think that he can get by just with pure ball striking. I like that call, top 10.
Well, Denny, at the top, you said you weren't a fan of the pimento cheese sandwich. I actually had the pimento cheese shipped in to my house on dry ice. So when we disconnect, I'm going to go eat my first pimento cheese sandwich of the week, straight from the Masters. And listen, man, this has been fun as always. And for everyone listening or checking this out, make sure to go to NBCsports.com for more information to help you out with your wagers. For Denny Carter, I'm Brad Thomas. Enjoy the Masters.